Hi, Miss Brown back again. We're about to start our study on the eukaryotic cell organelles, continuing with your organizer. And keep in mind, again, you can stop this at any point when you need to write something down and start it back again. So these cell organelles, these are found in eukaryotic cells. They're little organs. Think of organelle as little organs, and they're small parts of the cell that each have important jobs. Now, there are three things that all cells will have. They all have a cell membrane, cytoplasm, and DNA. And we are going to focus in on these eukaryotic cell organelles. So let's start with what happens in the nucleus. The nucleus is the cell's control center. It's like the brain, and it directs all the activities. It was discovered by Brown. You've already got that down. And it's usually near the center. It's not dead on in the center all the time. It kind of floats around usually, but it's in the center so it can be equidistant from all areas of the cell. And that's where we find the DNA. Now, the nuclear membrane, that's what surrounds the nucleus. It separates the nucleus from the cytoplasm, and it's porous, which means it has some holes in it, and it allows some things in and some things out. It allows cell traffic in and out of that nucleus, things that can come in and things that can leave. And then you have the nucleolus. You'll hear this pronounced a couple of different ways. Sometimes you hear it called the nucleolus, and sometimes you hear it called the nucleolus. And it's a dark body in the nucleus, and it has large amounts of RNA, and it makes ribosomes for the cell's cytoplasm. And then you have the DNA. Now, chromatin, those are DNA fragments. And then you have chromosomes, and those are organized strands of DNA, and that only appears, they only get organized when it's time to do the cell division process. And as humans, we have enough DNA in every cell to form 46 chromosomes. Now, let's talk about the cytoplasm. It fills the space outside of the nucleus and inside the cell membrane. It's a colloid, which we learned about when we did solutions, and it's the color and consistency of apple jelly. You may have seen it's like grape jelly. It just has a different color. I don't mean it tastes like that. I don't mean that's what it's made of, but that's just the color and consistency of it, and it's just filled with these little cell organs, these organelles. Now, around the edge of the cell membrane, that's the outer edge of the cell cytoplasm, and it's porous, and it's what we call selectively permeable. It's kind of picky about what comes in and goes out. And believe it or not, we'll have a separate study next on the cell membrane. It has so much to do with how living things function. And it's composed of a phospholipid bilayer with embedded proteins. Then we have this endoplasmic reticulum. This is called ER almost all the time. And there's two types. There's rough, and it's covered with ribosomes, and it transports the cell proteins. And then you have the smooth. It doesn't have ribosomes, and it transports the lipids. And here's how I remember. Remember lipids from our organic study? Those are the fats and oils, and think about how they're smooth and slick. And that's how I remember that the smooth carries the lipids. Then we have ribosomes. These are protein factories for the cell. They're the most numerous cell organelle, and they're found in the cytoplasm and attached to the ER. So they're all over the place inside the cell. Then we have the Golgi body, and I often say this is my favorite one. I think it's a neat little item. It sorts packages, and it ships cell materials. So it puts things inside these vesicles. It's like our own little UPS or FedEx of the cell, and it moves things around inside the cell and gets them where they need to go. And then we have vesicles. These are the actual shipping containers that come off of the Golgi body. They pinch off, and they remain inside for storage around in the cell, or they can actually fuse with the cell membrane to export cell products like wastes or other things that are needed. Then the mitochondria, and you all come to me saying it's the energy powerhouse, the powerhouse of the cell. And it does generate cell energy and ATP. It's very important in the cell energy process, and the number varies according to the energy needs of the cell. Like, which body part in the human body do you think the cells would have more mitochondria? The heart, the cardiac muscle, or the bones? And of course, it's the heart, because your heart pumps nonstop your entire life, day and night. So it needs that energy. All right, and then we have the lysosome, and lyso means to split open. It's the cell digesting and recycling center. So it has these powerful enzymes. Remember, those enzymes help run chemical processes, and it breaks down unneeded organelles. It breaks down old and worn out organelles, and if there's any parts there that can be reused to make new organelles, it recycles those. Then we have the cytoskeleton. It's a framework, a 3D shape. It keeps the cell from just collapsing like a bowl of Jell-O. It holds, it helps with cell movement, and it's made of small protein fibers called microtubules. Now the centrioles. Now, this is important. They're found only in animal cells, and they make the spindle fibers that are used during cell division to help separate chromosomes. Now, cell locomotion. Locomotion means to move. Now, cilia are short. They are numerous. They have a lot of cilia. If it's cilia, there's several, usually all the way around the cell, and they work like oars in a boat. And then you have the flagella. It's long and tail-like. There can be one or two of these, and they work like a propeller. And you may be more familiar with seeing pictures of a sperm cell that have flagella. Now, in plant cells, we have some additional ones you'll find at the bottom of your page. The cell wall, vacuole, and plastids. Okay, the cell wall is a tough outer protective cover. It helps with shape. It supports the body. It's outside the cell membrane, and it's made of this thing called cellulose. That's a fiber in your diet. That's what makes an apple crisp or a cucumber, something like that, when you eat it raw. And when you cook items, it breaks that cell wall down and it makes it more soft. So compare a crisp apple you might eat with your lunch to maybe an apple pie your mom has cooked, and those apples have been cooked down and baked, and it breaks down the cell wall and it makes them softer. Just like when you cook beans and peas or potatoes, and it gives them a different consistency because you broke down that cell wall, you broke down that cellulose with cooking. All right, the vacuole is a large, centrally located storage container, and it's filled with water and something called cell sap. And it gives a plant cell what we call turgor pressure. The best way I can describe turgor pressure is a water hose. You know, when the water is turned off at the spigot and the water hose is empty, how it has a different feeling. But if that water hose is turned on, the water's turned on, it gives it turgor pressure. The same thing happens in a plant. And when a plant loses all its water, when it hasn't been watered or it's during a drought, it will fall over because it's lost its turgor pressure. And if you have any house plants that your mom or dad does in your home, if you have this one called a peace lily, it lets you know when it needs water. It just lays over. And so often if you catch it in time and you put water in it, it'll plump right up because it replaces the turgor pressure inside those cell vacuoles. And now we have plastids. They are storage containers, and there are different kinds depending on what they store. One you're very familiar with there is the chloroplast. It's chlorophyll, it's green, it's where photosynthesis happens. It's what makes plants green. Then you have something called the chromoplast, and they contain other cell pigments, and they're the ones we're about to see now because it's a fall season. When the chloroplasts lose their pigment, the green, we'll start seeing the red, yellow, orange, and purple. We'll see those beautiful colors in the fall. And then there's the leucoplasts, and they store cell food. It could be starch. Think about a potato, how it's full of starch, or a rice grain. Or it could be oil, like in an avocado. It has a lot of oil in it. So it just contains the food for the plant. Okay, and that will be the end of this presentation. Thank you.